Let's check out this weird tale here, man. Then I'm gonna come back with my reaction. This story is about the Black Jeffrey Dahmer in Kansas City. I don't know, man. Let's check it out, and I'm gonna come back with my reaction.
It just didn't have to be. It really didn't. I think about that all the time. It's hard.
Hmm.
Elton was found in the basement of this KCK home. His legs and arms were cut off. Back then, the neighborhood was
Whoa.
talking about the crime and the man responsible.
The dude always wanted to be like Jeffrey Dahmer and stuff, and he always said if you go out, he want to go out like a legend.
Elton Brown wasn't the only victim. Terry Green, Michael Weaver Jr., and David Masek.
Wow.
Mark Sappington. Mary White called out her son's name, but heard no reply. She and her son, Mark Sappington, lived together in a home located in northeast Kansas City. They lived in an impoverished neighborhood that was crime-ridden. It occurred to her that perhaps he had gone to the basement. White was walking down the basement stairs when she came to a freezing halt. She noticed drops of blood on the stairs. As she looked up, she screamed. The basement walls were splattered with blood. Rushing out of the basement, she called the police. White did everything that a mother could do. However, she was to discover that she had lost her son forever. It was not that her son had become another crime statistic. What she would find out is that her son was the Kansas City vampire. What's a mother to do? Mark Sappington was born February 9th, 1978, and grew up in Kansas City on the north side. His was a world of poverty. His mother was devoted to the church and held the same expectations for her son. His mother had good reason for instilling her son with religious observance, as violence and crime were part of their neighborhood reality. Many children fell victim to gang violence or joined them. Sappington was liked by all those who knew him. He was intelligent and charismatic, and people naturally gravitated toward him. Unfortunately for Sappington, the reality of his world was more persuasive than his mother's guidance. On March 16th, 2001, an event occurred that would be the starting point of his descent into an evil darkness. Hanging with the wrong crowd. While walking around his neighborhood, Sappington met another boy his age, Armando Gayton. Gayton was everything that Sappington was not. Gayton was a gangster wannabe who lived by the code of the street. For some strange reason, Sappington liked him. Gayton took Sappington to his clubhouse, where he showed him a black AK assault rifle. He told Sappington that to earn respect, people needed to fear you. He invited Sappington to join him in testing out his new toy. The two boys were walking down a street when Gayton told him he needed to make a stop. Gayton walked in to Phase 1 Auto Sales and confronted its owner, David Mashik. Gayton bought a car from Phase 1, but it was impounded. Gayton demanded Mashik get his car out from the impound lot. Mashik blew off Gayton for making such a ridiculous request. Gayton stormed out of the store, and Mashik resumed eating his lunch with one of his employees, Johnny Sublett. As they were eating, Sappington entered the shop with the rifle. Sublett ran for cover by escaping to the garage. He heard the gunshots from his hiding spot. When they stopped and he felt that it was safe, Sublett went back to the office. Mashik was lying on the floor, barely alive. Sublett called 911. When he hung up the phone, he looked at the front door of the shop. It was open, and a crowd of people had gathered. The crowd knew what had happened. They were used to it. That Sappington shot someone would be inconceivable to those who knew him. If those who loved him knew the truth, his actions that day might have been easier to understand. Before the shooting, he had started using PCP. There was also another secret people were not aware of, including Sappington himself. His mother had schizophrenia, and he was developing it as well. Voices in his head. On April 7th, 2001, Sappington was in his room, experiencing distress from the voices in his head. His PCP use and schizophrenia were ganging up on him. He heard a
Wow.
knock on his bedroom door. It was Terry T. Green. 25-year-old Green had been a longtime friend of Sappington's. As the two talked, Sappington had a hard time concentrating on their conversation. There was another voice drowning out Green's words. The voice
Wow.
told Sappington he needed to kill his friend.
Damn.
Sappington told Green
Wrong
he
time.
needed help moving a box in the basement. When they were in the basement, Sappington waited till Green had his back turned away from him and stabbed him with a hunting knife. Green screamed as he felt his own blood running down his shirt. Green stabbed him 3 more times. Each stabbing motion sent blood spattering against the basement walls. Sappington kneeled over Green's body and lapped up the blood as it flowed out of him, until he heard a noise coming from outside the house. Alarmed that he would be caught, he hid the body in the basement, covering it with a tarp. When night came, he carried Green's body to his mother's car. He placed it in the trunk and drove off to a nightclub they had frequented. He found an unlocked car in the club's parking lot and placed Green's body on its back seat.
Wow.
Police were alerted of Green's body on April 10th when an employee of the nightclub was cleaning the parking lot. Sappington's voices did not tell him to kill Green. They just told him that he needed to kill someone. Green's misfortune was to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Wrong time. Man.
22-year-old Michael Weaver Jr. was another longtime friend of Sappington's. He went to visit Sappington, who was in his backyard. Sappington's mother was out of the house. Sappington's voices told him he needed to eat human flesh. Weaver was joking with him as usual. However, Sappington could only hear his voices. Sappington had stolen a large kitchen knife from Weaver's home when he had visited that very morning. When Weaver was not looking, Sappington stabbed him in the back so hard the blade penetrated his chest. Still alive, Weaver miraculously was able to escape. He ran to his car and drove off. Tragically, he did not make it. In his rapidly weakening condition, he lost control of his car and crashed into a light pole. A neighbor heard the crash and called police. When they approached the vehicle, they found Weaver slumped over in the front seat. Because Weaver got away from him, Sappington did not get the opportunity to drink his blood or taste his flesh.
This is crazy.
Unappeased, the voices in his head continued to torment him. He needed to satisfy them, and they would only be satisfied if he followed their command. On the very same day he killed Weaver, Sappington invited 21-year-old Fred Alton Brown to his home. Brown was also a friend of Sappington's and would be his next victim. When Brown came over, Sappington suggested they smoke wet, which is a tainted form of marijuana. Marijuana dipped in a chemical such as formaldehyde, dried, and then smoked. The two of them went down to his basement and started smoking the marijuana. Smoking wet normally helped Sappington with his voices. However, not this time. He experienced the voices in their full potency as they commanded him to eat human flesh. Sappington chose Brown as his next target, simply because he was available to him. They got high. It was then that Sappington got up, went to the corner of the basement, and grabbed a gun he had hidden there. He shot Brown in the back, killing him instantly. Sappington could finally satisfy the commanding voices in his head. He could feast on human flesh. Sappington cut a piece of flesh from Brown's leg and ate it. But there was a problem. He hated the taste. Determined to carry through with what he started, he took it upstairs to the kitchen and fried the piece of flesh. When the meat was cooked, he returned to the basement to eat it and drink Brown's blood. For the first time, he was able to appease the voices.
He had a demon in him.
Sappington dismembered Brown's body and hid the body parts in different locations through the city. Got to get away. On April 10th, Sappington was feeling fearful again. He had realized what he had done and knew it was only a matter of time before he was captured for his crimes. He was walking away from his house when he saw the perfect opportunity. His neighbor, Anita Washington, had just pulled into her driveway after returning home from the grocery store. Sappington carjacked Washington's car. He got in the back seat and ordered her to drive him out of town. As she drove, Sappington repeatedly yelled out that he was a dead man.
Mm.
He eventually ordered Washington to pull over so he could drive. She was not driving fast enough for him. It was when she got out of the car to let Sappington drive, she escaped him by running away. She contacted the police and told them what had happened. The police apprehended Sappington on April 11th. He confessed to all his crimes and took detectives to where he had disposed of the bodies. He was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of kidnapping, and aggravated burglary. He is serving life in prison
crazy.
without the chance of parole.
Dang.
For more of these
Wasn't that a crazy story, y'all? He was the real life Black Jeffrey Dahmer, huh? Oh man, I ain't even never heard that story, man. You're out of Kansas City. That was a crazy story, man. Wow. Anyway, what y'all think about that? What y'all think about that story, man? Leave it in the comments. Give me a thumbs up button. Subscribe to Charles Arnaz World. Whoa, that was